Welcome everybody to November's Masterclass, Escaping Holiday Hell. This is going to be an interesting one because we've got a small group. And so we're going to go deep into a few people. But little background, my name is Lindon Crow. I'm the president of Productive Learning. I lead these masterclasses about once a month for you. And we got another fun one coming in December. But then next year, we're going to do something very unique. We're actually going to go through a book that my dad, Lindon Oscar Crow Jr., wrote, and I'm going to do some readings and some lessons off of his book. Did you know he had a book? Probably not, because we haven't released it yet. So anyway, that'll come January 2025. But for now, we're doing Holiday Hell, and we are going to go into some ways that our mind predicts and creates a future we don't even want. Because here at Productive Learning, we are always looking to see how can we create our ideal, most extraordinary lives. But if we leave it up to our mind and our unconscious mind to create it, we will only just recreate the past. And so unless your past is just full of extraordinary, then you're in the right place, because we're going to go start to create something different than our past has us do. So one thing that I was looking at was how did I want to prepare or bring myself into remembering something about the holidays that I really didn't like. And so the first memory that came up for me was when I was 11 years old. This is Christmas morning. All the presents were essentially done. I've got my two sisters. I've got a twin sister and an older sister, and I got my parents. All the presents were essentially all unwrapped, but there was one that was found left under the tree, and it was for me, and it was from my sisters. And so I got to give you a little context here. I'm 11 years old, and I hit puberty early. So I'm already in the place where I am taller and stronger and more hairy than most every other boy out there. And I am at that stage where I have that really horrendously uncomfortable little mustache going on, where the rest of my face is just a nice, clean baby face, but then I've got this little mustache going on. You guys, you know, right? You remember when you were 11, 12 and looking at the other boys. So I had that going on. And some more context was I knew that I had that going on, and I thought it was so uncomfortable and I didn't like it, that what I did was I used my Swiss Army knife scissors to cut my little mustache every once in a while. But I didn't pay much attention to how I looked. So who knows how many days or weeks would go by until I'd see it again and be like, oh gosh, and then I'd get my little Swiss Army knife scissors to go cut it. This is how uncomfortable of a person I was. I didn't reach out to anybody to ask for help. I didn't go anywhere to ask for help. And this is where I was. So there's the context, right? I'm a pubescent 11-year-old with a funky little mustache, and I am embarrassed by who I am. So I'm opening this last present that is from my two sisters, and it is a shaving kit with a razor and shaving cream and some aftershave and all that stuff. And from their standpoint, they're saying, hey, this is what he's needing. This is what he's going through. He's going to need to shave. From me, it told me that everyone sees this horrible, ugly, really uncomfortable thing about me that I thought that I was hiding, but I apparently was not. And now it is on display. And not just with my family, but that must have meant that other people were seeing this too. So this is all going through me as I'm opening this up, and they're smiling, everyone's happy, mom and dad are drinking coffees and teas, and I'm opening this, and I start to sweat. I don't say anything because my reaction doesn't go to anger. I faint. I just literally, I'm sitting here and I'm blank. I'm void of what to do, how to respond, what to say. And my dad, with most likely the most honorable intent, which is like to diffuse the situation, make light of the situation, he just opens up the shaving kit and start shaving himself and saying, "Oh yeah, you've never used these. These are really easy." So now I am being told by this person that knows how to shave that it's super simple. I should have been doing this all before. You should have been asking me. I'm now thinking that I should have, I should have, I should have. So I am just stacking on in my insecurities about this one situation, right? What I didn't have then, why I bring this whole thing to your attention is because what I didn't have then are two things. One is I was always looking to avoid the feeling of embarrassment. And when I was looking to avoid the feeling of embarrassment, what it meant was I wasn't acknowledging what the actual underlying emotion and experience was that I needed to resolve. The surface level was embarrassment, and so that's why I would cut my little mustache because I was trying to avoid the embarrassment of being seen as something different. All right, I was more physically mature than most kids at 11 years old. But what was underneath that I didn't have access to was the feeling of being sad and alone and different. Because even at 11 years old, I had already had years of an experience of I'm the male in the family. My dad worked a lot. So I've got two sisters and a mom, and I've got all female cousins. And we grew up with them a lot. And so what my experience was is the things that I like to do are not the thing that everybody else likes to do. The way that my body works is not the way that their body works. What they think is going to be fun to go play together is not what I think is going to be fun. So I am different. And different means not special and unique like a snowflake. It means different like you are awkward and strange and you should be left out. And so that was the experience growing up earlier that I started to have a repetitive cycle of difference means alone and sad. Don't feel different because difference is also tied to embarrassment. So now I'm going to try to avoid embarrassment. But it didn't connect to the deeper feeling of the sadness and alone. If I were to have caught myself, or if I would have been coached through that, I would have gotten to the feeling of sadness alone and then worked on how to, in a healthy way, process through that. But instead, I thought I would be working at an 11-year-old's brilliant mind to figure out strategies to avoid embarrassment. And that is practically impossible, especially as you go through puberty and middle school. The second thing that I didn't have at that point was how to look at the situation differently. All I had was I could recreate the past and or try to avoid the past, which meant that I'm still looking at the same thing. And wherever you are focused on is where you are going to be moving and attracted towards. So I'm a mountain biker, and every mountain biker and or motorcyclist and or even driver knows if you are looking at something that you are trying to avoid, you're still naturally moving in that direction. So as a mountain biker, you're supposed to be thinking, what's the line that I want to take? Not what's the rock or the ledge that I want to avoid. I want to take that line and maintain on the line going over the rocks and whatever they are. I, in my childhood at that point, didn't have a what's the line that I want to take? What's the new outcome that I want to have? So I had two things going against me, which is what we're going to work on today. I had one, I didn't actually understand the underlying emotion that I was having that I needed to work on. I was seeing only the surface level. So I wasn't addressing the right issue. And second, I didn't have something else to put in its place. I didn't have a where are we going instead. So the combination of the two just kept me repeating a cycle. And yes, I was only 11 years old. And so that cycle was only what, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. But now add 2, 3, 4, 5 decades onto it for you all. You've been running those cycles over and over again, hence why you decided to show up to this Escaping Holiday Hell Masterclass. So there's my little story. I don't need oohs and ahs, and I don't need sympathy because luckily I have done a lot of work on it. So let's talk about resistance. Why do we want to talk about resistance? Because something about this masterclass said that you are resisting what is coming up this holiday season. Maybe it's it's normal to resist the entire thing. Maybe it's specific situations, specific events. But why do we resist? Resistance is isn't about just being stubborn or difficult. It's a form of self-protection. People develop ways to shield themselves from emotional pain or rejection or uncomfortable truths, and resistance is one of those shields. Think of it like a defense system. It kicks in when we are anticipating feeling threatened or overwhelmed with some kind of experience that we don't want. And therefore, we have resistance going into it. Okay. But that tells you two things. One is there's something that our mind is anticipating, and our mind is always thinking about and projecting into the future. It's creating the line that we're going to follow. So if we are in resistance, that means it's already thinking in the future as to what it is going to experience, which means that's what it's looking at. It's looking at that rock as we go and mountain bike. It's thinking, I know this path and there's a rock up there that I should avoid, and it's on the left-hand side, and our mind is thinking about that as opposed to there's an obstacle up ahead and the line is to the left. Let's hit to the left. Let's go to the left as I approach this. Let's think to the left. I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking what our unconscious is doing is just thinking about the thing that we're going to go and hit, which creates the feeling of resistance. Okay. So understanding resistance as a protective mechanism shifts how we respond. Instead of seeing it as a problem that we have to fix, we can recognize it as a way of coping. I think by approaching resistance with this kind of feeling of curiosity and compassion, it lowers our defenses and we can feel safe enough to explore the underlying fears or emotions driving the resistance. Right? If we see it as a coping mechanism, we can more compassionately look at ourselves, which again brings us down to that deeper layer. Everybody follow? Nods? Right on, right on. Okay. So what I want to do is I want you to think about the next upcoming couple of months and the holiday experience that you are not wanting to go through. Is it in an event? Is it a dinner? For example, or it could even be the act of doing something. So like having to give the gifts to people you wouldn't normally give a gift to, right? For business owners, this could be to your employees. Like, why do I have to give them something? Or for families, this could be to your uncle or aunt who you don't ever talk to, or cousins that are your age that send you every year beautiful pictures and notes, and you think, but you haven't actually seen them for, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 years, and you feel this obligation to send something. And are we obligated to because we what? Share DNA? Or are you thinking about holiday parties with family, friends, works, and thinking about, gosh, I just got to put on a happy face. I just got to put on a happy face. I just got to put on a happy face, when you'd rather just do some Netflix and chill. Okay. So type in the chat, what's the event? Holiday party, dinner? Is it Christmas morning? Or it could be, if you're a parent, do you have a semi-reliable schedule of when you can work and when you can exercise and when you can walk the dog, and when that semi-reliable schedule gets blown to smithereens because there's performances and there's half days off of school or full days off of school or the whole week of holiday, winter break? It's great that your kids have a break, but your life keeps going. What's the thing that you're not looking forward to? Let's make this direct and real. No more theory. Okay. So as you think through something, I want you to now pause that for a moment, pin it. I want you to think through family dynamics and the roles we play. Why do we want to do this? Our family roles are the characters that we unconsciously take on in our families to maintain a balance or meet some type of expectation. Okay. These are family roles because that's when they were formed, even if your family is not the thing that is going to trigger you the most. Maybe on one of the things that you wrote, it was about work or something. That's okay. You learned a family role growing up. So these are formed during our childhood and they influence how our behavior, especially during high stakes times like the holidays, occur. So what are the different kinds of family roles that you take on? Let me share my screen here with you so that you can see. Here's a couple of ideas of family roles. Are you the peacekeeper? Are you the one that always wants to make everybody happy, diffuse the tension, make sure that nothing escalates? Are you the overachiever? You want to show everybody how good you are. Maybe you're the clown. Maybe you're the person that just lightens the mood, or you avoid deep conversations. Um, what are you? What is your typical role growing up? And then you may also see that you do this currently still. So what's the role that you take on? Scapegoat and rebel. Are you the traditionalist? You don't want anything to change. You want it to be just like it's always been, the same cookies and the same dinner and the same seats and the same song playlist. What were you growing up and what are you now? Think through what that is. The different ones for those that are listening. Sorry. The peacekeeper, you try to keep the harmony. You could be the hero or the overachiever. You're always seeking approval. You're always saving the day somehow. Or are you the invisible one? Are you the one that just stays in the background, not really there, wouldn't know if you weren't there, don't really create a presence? Are you the scapegoat or rebel? Do you blame or do you cause disruption? Do you like to poke at things? Are you the clown? Do you use humor to diffuse stress, or do you use humor to deflect when things start to get hot and heavy? Or one of my favorites, are you the parentified child? Are you the person taking too much responsibility because what the heck, nobody else is, so somebody's got to do it. I guess I'll just do it. Mom and dad are getting drunk. I guess I'll just take care of dinner tonight. Right? Or the helper, you manage everybody else's needs, losing yourself in the thought in the process. And or like I said earlier, the traditionalists. You want to make sure it's always the same way because this is what was fun way back then. So we're going to do it again. Right? So think about which role that you take. And as you do, hopefully you're starting to notice that if you identify and take one of those roles, naturally you take one of those roles, it creates a perspective by which you are then going to look at and address the future going forward. So all of those holiday activities that you're thinking about and or dreading, if you have a natural reaction to be one of these roles, that reaction, that role is thinking how to go and tackle and approach and either have fun or hate, whatever any of those are, which, as you could assume, creates a very limited experience and typically one that you may not enjoy. Hence why you're here today. Okay, so now everybody got some stuff. Yep, got some rolls, got some rolls. Very good. Now we've got an area that we're not looking forward to, an event that we're not looking forward to. We have a role that we typically play. Okay. Now, In this masterclass, what I want to talk through is a little bit about going forward. If you want to do some of the work that I talked about in my story about my shaving and my facial hair at puberty, when I talked about what was the underlying emotion, because the top emotion was embarrassment, the underlying emotion was being different and feeling lonely. That work we're not going to do in this masterclass. That work you and I can do one-on-one with a free coaching call if you want to after. I will talk about it afterwards. But what we're going to do on this masterclass is we're going to talk about what is the uncomfortable feeling that you're anticipating feeling in that event that you talked about. So now go into the events that you talked about. I think people started to write some stuff up here. What do we got? Let's see, feeling interested in bearing family group setting. Great. Family group setting. Got it. Gift giving for family. Great. The financial stress during the holidays. Totally right. Because we got lights to put up. We've got electric bills that are going up. We've got presents to do. We've got to wear certain things to all these different events, and we can't wear last year's stuff, all that good stuff. Okay, so think through what those are, and now connect to what's the emotion that you will feel, that you're anticipating feeling as you connect to that future thing. It's likely going to be connected in some way. You don't need to make this connection yet to what that roller position is in the family dynamic. That roller position is also a strategy for how to deal with this emotion that you're identifying. So again, think through what is it that you are going to feel. And some of you already wrote some of that, so you may be rewriting, but I want to make sure that you look at what's the feeling of that future event or events that you're going to be going through. Okay. Now, like I talked about earlier, our minds are goal-seeking machines. They're always predicting the future, and they do that from constant, ongoing repetition and learning. The older we are, the more repetition that we've had, and thus our expectations can be more set. Now, with our history and with a history that we are acknowledging, but we're not going into right now, that would take a little bit too long. But we can look at the roles that we play and identifying the current emotions that drum up when we think of the event that we're not looking forward to. What can we assume your mind will expect the outcome to be? It's a little bit different than the emotion. What can we assume the outcome will be? Feeling of failure, not being worthy, not good enough. Nice, very nice. There's an emotion and then there's an outcome. It's the thing that evolves out of the emotional state. So for example, you could say, I could feel angry and then I anticipate feeling resentful and closed off. Or you could say, I could feel alone and then I anticipate feeling intimidated to reach out and then just pulling back from connecting. Anger that others not feeling the same way. Perfect. Great. You've got it. You've got it. Okay. Now, we're going to shift gears for this last portion of it. Let's say that we connect and we do some work on our history. Well, let me give a little example here. Let me move forward with this one. So, for our experience, as a way to look at what typically happens in our system in a default reactionary way when we are not at our best. What happens is that we have a experience in the present moment right now. And our mind needs to use all of its history to figure out what the heck to do with this. It looks to its archive, it looks to its past to say, what do I do about this situation now? That past we could cross our fingers and hope that the past had a healthy way of dealing with this and then creates a wonderful, healthy outcome in the future. But those of us that have an anticipation of something bad happening in the future, it's because it looked toward the past, and whatever that past experience was or experiences were, it learned not a very healthy way to approach it. I should say healthy in regards to the fulfillment that we could have in our life. So in the present moment, we look to our past to go create some way of thinking about how to deal with this, and it uses that to predict the future. That prediction of the future, then we create strategies for how to deal with that present moment. So if left to our unconscious devices, this present moment could have the potential to go many different routes and many different experiences. But because it just goes into our past and it predicts the future from our past, all we are doing is recreating it over and over again. Ideally, what happens is that our present has us acknowledge our reaction to the past. This would be like today, when I start to feel embarrassed, when I start to feel the pressure of the holidays and embarrassment starts to come up, one thing that I will do is say, where does this embarrassment come from? And that embarrassment comes from, oh, that early experience of feeling like I was different because I gave you already my shaving, my Swiss Army knife using the little tweezers on there experience, right? Once I acknowledge the past, what that frees me up to do is it says that I could look to the future to figure out what kind of outcome I would like instead. Not just recreating the past, but what different outcome could I have? Which would mean that I'd be creating an intention, hopefully based off of your own mission and your values. If I do that, that future version of yourself then gives your current you an idea of how to show up, different than the past. So that's what our goal is how can we use the present and acknowledge the feelings and responses that we have in the present by acknowledging the past to then dissuade and dissipate the emotional anchor that the past has to us, and therefore create a space for us to go forward using some future intention based on our higher conscious and our higher mission and vision and values. That's our goal. So with our current experience that we're looking at, what we're going to do is think about, actually, what I want to do is get into an eyes closed process. This is what's going to help us figure out something else to connect to in the future. So get yourself nice and comfortable. Hopefully, if you're driving, you want to keep your eyes open. But what I'd like you to do is just sit there and take a nice big deep breath in and let it out. I want to go into a question of what experience would we genuinely like to have? Here's how we'll do that. I'd like you to picture yourself in what you anticipate that experience of the holiday from hell gathering, whether that was the financial stress, whether that was the dinner, whether that was something about your family. Put yourself into the situation where you feel that in the future. And notice where you're sitting or where you're standing. Notice what you're wearing. What do you see from that perspective? What do you hear? Maybe even what do you smell? So now you've got this experience that your mind is predicting in the future of this holiday hell. And now I want you to imagine that a little elf-sized Lindon flies into the room and sprinkles some holiday wizard magic on top of you. And now, with that holiday wizard magic, you don't feel what you've always felt. That holiday wizard magic has you feel everything that you would like to feel. The situation around you doesn't change. The people are still there. The to-dos are still there. But you somehow feel way better. What would you feel instead? Notice where the feeling is in your body. Notice your facial expression. Notice how your shoulders sit and your hips lay and your legs are. Notice all the feels as that holiday wizard Lindon sprinkles some magic holiday dust on you. You get to feel exactly like you'd want to. Then think about how you feel towards all those other people. Okay. So now that you have that feeling, I'd like you to take a nice big deep breath in and let it out. And then come back to present. You can open your eyes. I'd love you to jot down and or write out in the chat, what is the feeling that you feel inside of you when I sprinkled that magic holiday wizard dust on you? Seen, understood, accepted, loved. Ooh, I like those ones. Those are nice. Those are very nice. Think about, connect to what those feelings are. So from here, we've done two things. Well, we've done a lot of different stuff. Gave you a revealing story of my 11-year-old self, but we'll talk about that in a minute. We've talked about what's the emotions that we feel or we're anticipating and the outcomes of what that anticipated feeling is into the future. We talked about how that's also connected to a repetitive historical event. And I've teased you with saying that there's a lot more in there. There's a lot deeper roots connected to that. And there's more work to be done. And if we can eradicate that, what we've then done is had a moment to say, if not that, then what? And I've given you a moment to say, if you got to be doused with Lindon's wizard pixie dust all over you, you got to feel the way that you'd want to feel, even regardless of the situation being the same, you could connect to something more. Now that's an emotional state. I am one for setting emotional intentions that have you feel very connected to some emotion, some state of being, some mental clarity. I think that's wonderful. I think it's needed, creates a foundation. I also always want to be practical. So what I'd like to do is, as you are hopefully still anchored somewhat into that emotion, I'd like you to think out, what boundaries or guidelines would you like to give to yourself so that you can have better odds of staying in that emotional place as you enter into the events and the season that has you feel a little bit nervous about or uncomfortable about. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where I think some people will listen to this and they'll think, yeah, I get it. I just need to do some certain things. And then you'll get off this masterclass and You'll go back to your email inbox, or you'll go back to your kids, or you'll go back to your driving, and then you will totally forget and you will have and repeat the same kind of holiday experience. Or you're going to write down in your calendar 2 or 3 days before the event, or maybe somewhere halfway through this holiday season, you're going to have a phone call with me so I can sprinkle some wizard holiday pixie dust on you. And we can reconnect back to do some of the work on the historical that we didn't do today and connect you to your higher conscious, which has in it the emotional component of that eyes closed process that I just brought you through. If you think you're going to do it by yourself, I wouldn't place a bet on you because you've been doing it for 20, 30, 40, 50. Keep going. How many years have you been doing it? You need some outside help. That's what I did not have at 11 years old. I didn't have the knowledge that I needed some help because all I could do was continuously go back to the feeling of embarrassment and how to get out of embarrassment. But connecting to that deeper historical sadness and loneliness would have had me dissipate some of that emotion. For then me, one of the things that I need to always remember, connect to, is when I connect to that emotion, then my courage can be drummed up. And I can do what becomes nervous or what is nervous or nerve-wracking to me. If I don't connect to that deeper emotion, I can say, come on, be courageous, come on, be courageous, and I will not do the thing because the resistance is too strong. The strategy, the coping mechanism of my mind is too strong. So I want you to put in your calendar, when are we going to have that call? In fact, right now, shoot me an email, lindona@productivelearning.com. You get a free 30-minute coaching call with me, and let's go through your history. And let's sprinkle some wizard dust on you. Email me right now, and then we can schedule it to happen right before whatever that event is. Okay? So let me start to moving to wrap up here. I shared my own holidays disaster story back when I was 11 years old. Talk to you about how there is this feeling that we can all typically identify, which is the tip of our iceberg. And then the deeper work, which is the underlying emotion underneath that tip of the iceberg, is where we need to do some excavating. That's where our emotions are holding us. And it's not the immediate thing that we are thinking about. There's a story underneath it. I then talked about how if we can start to reframe our resistance to these holiday situations, these dinner parties, these gift givings, these financial strain, if we can reframe the resistance that we have as self-protection, as opposed to stubbornness or resistance, then it can open up our way in which we approach it, because we can start to feel much more curious about it. And we can see that we're trying to create a sense of safety and protection, which means that we have to give ourselves some safety and protection, as opposed to just getting angry and resisting it even further, or just trying to plow through it. Okay. We talked about how we can recognize that we have different family roles. The purpose for that is so that we can see that we keep going back into different ways of being. And so if you ever start to notice that you're in one of those family role dynamics, you can make a bet that that is you recreating some of the history. So that's just a flag for you to say, oh my gosh, I'm going back into, I'm the jokester. Why am I making so many jokes at the dinner table? Why am I trying to calm everybody down? Why am I taking care of everybody? I must be in a reaction right now. Okay. And then we uncovered a little bit of ways in which we can create a new outcome if we can connect to a feel-good state that we believe in. I gave you an eyes closed process to do that. You could remember this webinar and try to go through that yourself. Totally good. And then from that state, even more importantly, to creating practical boundaries and guidelines for you. What are you going to do to up the odds of you staying in that pixie dust experience that you did in the eyes closed process. Because if you don't give yourself that experience to tap back into, then the mind will just recreate the past over and over and over again. And that doesn't sound like a good experience of the holidays to me. So, these holidays do not have to feel like a battlefield. It is okay for you to take care of yourselves and set boundaries. That doesn't necessarily mean just running away from everything, but it does mean tackling your emotions head on. From my standpoint, it means tackling your emotions head on, and doing it with some support and guidance is, to me, the only way to do this thing. I am offering you a free 30-minute coaching call anytime in this next holiday season to figure out how we can approach it and get a better outcome than just repeating the past. So, thank you all for enjoying, hopefully, my 11-year-old holiday disaster story. Hopefully, we can all laugh at our own holiday disaster stories instead of dread them. Thank you for participating. Again, shoot an email to lindona@productivelearning.com. Get your free coaching call, and then let's have a conversation about you and your upcoming holiday experience. Hopefully not from hell, but from something much more enjoyable. Thank you all.